Hello, welcome back to another episode of A Murder at the End of the World, our most likely suspects, ranked. Just like amateur sleuth Darby Hart, we're on the case. This week saw the release of Crime Scene, the 6th episode of the new Hulu whodunit A Murder at the End of the World. The events that followed have caused us to reevaluate our assumptions about who killed artist, hacker, and activist Bill Farah and now multiple others at billionaire Andy Ronson's Icelandic retreat, or is it an apocalyptic timeshare for millionaires? Over halfway through the season, our unstoppable amateur investigator, Darby Hart, is beginning to reduce the number of potential suspects on her list. After leaving off on a cliffhanger in Episode 5, The Crypt, we now know exactly why co-creators Britt Marling and Zat Batmanglij chose that title. Darby is drawn to the pool house and gets trapped beneath its thick, fiberglass-like cover after he decides to take a quick dip in the heated pool. Just as she's about to drown, a fuzzy person with an axe materializes out of nowhere to save her and smash through the barrier. In the following scene, she is shown lying down and seeing what at first appears to be Lee, but upon closer inspection, she realizes that it is actually David. Lee then reappears, bringing warm blankets for the chilly investigator. Even strangers Lee and David embrace and share information, which, as Darby is still recuperating from her near-death experience, is relayed from her perspective. These two haven't even spoken to each other yet, and now they're muttering warnings to one another while they're together. The group ponders aloud whether the automatic pool cover is on the retreat's grid, raising the possibility that it is easily hackable. Artificial intelligence gone wild remains the central topic of this series, but human control remains to a greater extent yet. Hopefully, the last 2 episodes will provide more detail to some of the characters who haven't said much thus far, which will lead to the identity of the real killer finally taking shape. 1. Andy Ronson, the host and tech billionaire. To identify our most likely suspects, we are just using the information from Episode 6's audio and visuals. This means that how can we not also keep Andy Ronson here at the top if it's an ipso facto truth, that is, if Darby, with all her intelligence and slyness, thinks Lee is telling the truth. Since he is the one with all the power, as we have already said, Andy was never going to change all that much in the rankings. After Darby suggests that Andy has the biggest motive to kill Bill and that it would be prudent to remove Lee and Zoomer from the situation, it would be blatantly irresponsible to not have Andy in the top position. To identify our most likely suspects, we are just using the information from Episode 6's audio and visuals. This means that how can we not also keep Andy Ronson here at the top if it's an ipso facto truth, that is, if Darby, with all her intelligence and slyness, thinks Lee is telling the truth. Since he is the one with all the power, as we have already said, Andy was never going to change all that much in the rankings. After Darby suggests that Andy has the biggest motive to kill Bill and that it would be prudent to remove Lee and Zoomer from the situation, it would be blatantly irresponsible to not have Andy in the top position. 2. Lee Anderson, the legendary hacker. Lee has a scary story to share about her husband, Andy. She says he's an obsessive, possessive father who will stop at nothing to shield Zoomer from the consequences of his ACHOO syndrome. She says she doesn't have any money and that he treats her abusively as well. Darby is also informed by Lee that she attempted to flee her spouse via Zoomer but ultimately found herself under Andy's authority again. Is she being honest with me? With her assortment of go-bags and her tendency to appear at the ideal moment to either kill Darby or neatly save her life, the evidence may still point to Lee. She also acknowledges that Bill was tricked into making the risky retreat by Darby. Ultimately, it all boils down to your perception of Lee. Are you an oppressed wife trying to protect her son and make an escape, or are you fabricating a story to further undermine Andy? 3. David, the architect. We hope to see more of the other actors, such as Lumet and renowned director Martin, so we can finally satisfy our desire to watch Raul Esparza's David rise up the ranks. We still don't know Martin or Lumet all that well, and there are only a few episodes remaining. Although David doesn't appear like a viable contender, he consistently manages to remain in close physical proximity to every murder victim after they pass away. Not to mention that when Darby attempted to be killed in the covered pool, he was there. His omnipresence maintains him on the list until Darby persuades him otherwise. When he seemed to have been beaten within an eyelash of his life in the final scene of Episode 6, we almost thought about removing him from our rankings, but for the time being, he remains. 4. Oliver, the robotics expert. Ryan J. Haddad's character Oliver is still there. It always seems to be lurking, waiting for you to least expect it. He acknowledges in this episode that he can travel short distances and is on his feet. Weary of being alone, he meets Darby and Lee following Lee's confessional and asks if they will keep him company in his room. Todd has everyone else giving up their electronics, but he has been clutching onto his phone. Untrustworthy, just a bit. Oliver isn't at the top of Darby's suspect list, but that doesn't mean we should write him off just yet. 5. Ray, the artificial intelligence assistant. Lee nods when Darby asks whether the automated pool cover is on the grid. The alternative intelligence, Ray, is the grid, then. We pay attention when anything like that occurs and threatens to harm our committed investigator. Once more, the fundamental premise of A Murder at the End of the World is artificial intelligence hacking, and it is certain that we won't have the firewalls and cybersecurity that we seem to have so much faith in. It seems to be in homage to Occam's razor thesis, which holds that what is most likely to be true is usually true. Ray and the entire rogue AI thing make it equally applicable in this case. Ray won't be able to remove himself from this list until Darby has definitively proven otherwise. 6. Todd, the head of security, and Eva, the head nurse. Starting this week, the husband and wife team will be paired as a single unit. Since Todd and Eva have the means and the chance to carry out all of the killings in Darby's attempted murder, they are now inextricably linked. Darby, Oliver, and Lee are certain that these two would be top suspects if Andy were to have someone else or people carry out the killings. Among other things, Eva has access to pacemaker electronics and morphine. In the meantime, Todd arrives at Oliver's door accompanied by an unsettling-looking Andy and a battered David. These two work well together, and because of their tight bond with their supervisor, they are seen as very dubious candidates. Thank you for watching.